The worst part wasn't what he heard. The worst part was that nobody in the room looked surprised. Like it was a joke everyone already knew, just not in front of him. When his fiancé's friends joked that she had a backup fiancé in case he ever messed things up, Daniel Harper didn't react the way anyone expected. He didn't get angry. He didn't argue. He didn't make a scene. He smiled. And then he did something far worse. He agreed with them. And that was the exact moment the entire night quietly collapsed. Daniel Harper was the kind of man who believed problems could be solved if you stayed calm long enough. At 33, he worked as a project coordinator for a logistics company outside Denver, the kind of job where mistakes cost money and emotions didn't fix anything. His coworkers used to joke that he thought like a risk analyst trapped in a normal guy's body, always thinking ahead, always calculating downside, always preparing for failure scenarios. He just never expected one of those scenarios would be his own engagement. He had been with Ashley Carter for a little over 4 years. They had lived together for the last 2, in an apartment Daniel had originally signed on his own. Her name never got added to the lease. At the time, it felt like paperwork. Later, it would feel like instinct. They got engaged about 6 months earlier, and even the ring had been unusual. No diamond, no luxury brand, nothing flashy enough for social media. They found it at a small weekend craft fair outside Boulder. A simple sterling silver ring with a small clear stone. Not expensive, not impressive by traditional standards. $98. Ashley loved it. She said she liked that it wasn't about money, that it felt authentic, that she didn't need some overpriced diamond to prove anything. She even joked, "If we make it to 5 years, you can upgrade me." At the time, he thought that meant she was practical. Months later, he would understand something else. Sometimes people don't want expensive promises because they aren't planning to keep them. The engagement party was small, maybe 15 people packed into Daniel's apartment. A few of his friends, mostly hers, and Tyler. Tyler had started appearing more and more over the previous few months, always around, always texting, always somehow already there when Daniel showed up. Daniel had asked about him before, and Ashley gave him the standard answer, "You're being paranoid. Tyler is like a brother to me." It's amazing how many disaster stories begin with exactly that sentence. Something about the night felt slightly wrong from the start. Nothing obvious, just small details. Ashley was warm with everyone, except him. Every time he walked toward her, she suddenly needed to help someone. Grab something, check something, answer something. And almost every time, Tyler was already standing there, like they shared gravity. Daniel had noticed things in the months leading up to that night. Texts that stopped when he entered the room. Her phone is flipping face down. Girls' nights that somehow kept ending within a few blocks of Tyler's condo. Lunches that were supposed to be quick but lasted half the afternoon. And one detail he couldn't ignore. She had completely stopped talking about the wedding. Not postponed, not stressed, just gone as a subject. Like it had quietly expired. They were opening gifts in the living room, a blender, towels, gift cards, normal couple stuff. Then Brittany decided to make a toast. She had clearly had enough champagne to forget the difference between funny and dangerous. She raised her glass. To Ashley and Daniel. Cheers followed. To Ashley because she always has her life figured out. Laughter. Great job, great apartment. Great fiancé? She nodded toward Daniel. He smiled politely. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. And honestly, she's so smart she even has a backup plan. The room shifted. Not quiet. Worse. That sharp group inhales when everyone realizes someone just crossed a line. Daniel looked at Ashley. She was blushing, but she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Tyler, and she was smiling. Not embarrassed, not shocked, pleased. Tyler raised his glass toward her with a small smirk. Like this was normal. Like this was understood. Brittany kept going, completely unaware she had just set off a grenade. I always tell her if Daniel ever screws up, Tyler is ready on the bench. A few people gave uncomfortable laughs. Daniel felt the sound in the room disappear, like someone muted reality, and suddenly everything from the past 6 months lined up perfectly. Not insecurity, not jealousy, data. The hidden texting, the location inconsistencies, the unexplained distance, the missing wedding conversations. And when everyone looked at him, waiting to see how he would react, he gave them something they didn't expect. He laughed, loud, real sounding, controlled. "Brittany, that's actually genius," Daniel said as he stood up. A few confused smiles appeared. "No, seriously," he continued. "A contingency plan is just smart risk management." Ashley's smile started to fade. "Daniel, what are you doing?" "No, really," he said calmly. "You always need a plan B." He walked over to the coat rack, reached into his jacket, pulled out the small velvet ring box. Earlier that afternoon, he had taken the ring off her finger, saying he wanted to clean it before the party. Now he walked slowly across the room, straight toward Tyler. Tyler looked confused but still half smiling, like he thought this was still a joke. Daniel took his hand, placed the box into his palm. "Tag in," Daniel said calmly. No anger, no emotion, just finality. "She's all yours." He didn't just hand it over. He opened Tyler's hand and left the box there. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to touch. Nobody moved. Even Brittany stopped smiling. "I think the party's over," Daniel said. That was when Ashley finally snapped. "What are you doing? It was a joke." Daniel looked directly into her eyes, and for the first time that night, his voice turned cold. "A joke?" Pause. "Like last Tuesday when you said you were at girls' night but your car was parked outside his place?" Tyler turned sharply toward her. That part clearly wasn't part of his version of the story. Interesting. So the lies weren't just for Daniel. "Everybody out," Daniel said, opening the door. People grabbed coats quietly. Nobody made eye contact. Nobody knew what to say. Because everyone in that apartment understood something in that moment. This wasn't the night his engagement ended. It was the night he stopped pretending he didn't already know. And later he would realize something even more important. The joke didn't destroy the relationship. It just revealed what had already been broken. Because once you see the truth clearly, you can't go back to not seeing it. Ashley's first reaction wasn't an apology. It wasn't an explanation. It was refusal. Brittany and Nicole were trying to guide her toward the door while she cried, but she kept pulling away from them like someone trying to physically resist reality. "I'm not leaving," she said, her voice breaking. "This is my home." Daniel didn't raise his voice. That somehow made it worse. "It's my apartment," he said calmly. "Your name isn't on the lease." That sentence landed harder than any argument could have. "You can't do this," she said. "I already did." He stepped aside and pointed toward the hallway. "You, Brittany, Nicole, and Tyler." His eyes rested on Tyler for just a second longer than necessary. "It's time to go." Tyler looked very different now. The confidence from earlier was gone. The little smirk had disappeared. Now he looked like a guy realizing he had accidentally stepped into a situation he didn't understand. He quietly placed the ring box on the side table like it had suddenly become dangerous to hold. Then he left. Fast. Ashley and her friends were the last ones standing there. "You're unbelievable," Brittany said. "You're seriously overreacting," Nicole added. Ashley didn't yell anymore. She just stared at Daniel while tears ran down her face. "You're really throwing away 4 years? Over a joke?" Daniel held the door open. "No," he said quietly. "I'm saving myself from being someone's plan A while they're quietly testing plan B." That was the moment something changed in her face. Because she understood that wasn't jealousy talking. That was someone who had already made a decision. She walked out. He closed the door, locked the deadbolt, slid the chain into place. And for a few seconds, he just stood there in silence. The apartment felt different already. Quieter. Empty in a way it hadn't felt before. That had been about 3 hours earlier. His phone hadn't stopped vibrating since. He ignored it. Instead, he sat on the couch, surrounded by half-eaten food and unopened gifts that suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else's life. Eventually, he picked up the small velvet ring box, turned it slowly in his hands, let out a long breath. "Best $100 I ever spent," he said to the empty room. He thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. About 15 minutes after he locked the door, the pounding started. Hard, demanding. Ashley, Tyler, Brittany. Daniel opened the door. "This is insane. You embarrassed her." Tyler tried sounding reasonable. "Dude, just come talk to her. You're making this worse." Daniel didn't move. He sat down, put on his noise-canceling headphones, and started a new game. Not because he wanted distraction, because he understood something they didn't. Control wasn't about yelling louder. It was about deciding when you stopped participating. For about 20 minutes, they kept going, knocking, arguing, demanding, trying to force a reaction. Eventually, Daniel paused the game, took off his headphones, and made one quiet decision. He called the non-emergency police line, reported a group of intoxicated individuals refusing to leave after being asked multiple times. Then he did something very intentional. He put the phone on speaker, turned the volume up. The dispatcher's voice carried clearly through the door. "Sir, are you in immediate danger?" The pounding stopped instantly. The shouting turned into whispering. "Oh my God, he's calling the cops." "Are you serious?" "Ashley, we need to go." "Come on, let's go." By the time police lights briefly flashed across his window, they were already gone. And just like that, something shifted. Not emotionally, structurally. The next morning, he finally checked his phone. It looked like a digital explosion. Messages stacked on messages. Ashley alone had sent dozens. Anger, begging, blame, rewriting history. "How could you humiliate me like that?" "It was a joke." "You have trust issues." "I'm staying at Tyler's now. Hope you're happy." "You pushed me to him." "My mom is horrified. We need to talk." "You didn't even let me explain." "Tyler is just a friend." That one almost made him laugh. There were messages from Brittany calling him unstable, Nicole saying he needed help, Ashley's mother telling him he must have misunderstood everything. Daniel replied to none of them, not one word. Instead, he started doing something else. Block, Ashley, block, Tyler, block, Brittany, block, Nicole, block, her mother. Silence. Not emotional silence, strategic silence. Then he moved to the next step. Control the environment. At 8:30 the next morning, a locksmith stood at his door. New deadbolt, new lock, reinforced plates. He paid without hesitation. Some purchases aren't about money. They're about peace. The next day, he started packing her things. Not angrily, not dramatically, methodically. Like someone closing a chapter. Clothes, shoes, makeup, bathroom supplies, chargers, books. Everything went into boxes. Some moments hit harder than expected. Old birthday cards, photos from trips, little notes he had written her. At one point, he sat on the closet floor for about 10 minutes. Not crying, not angry, just empty. 4 years reduced to cardboard boxes. Then he found something that snapped the emptiness back into focus. A framed photo. Ashley and Tyler. From college. Comfortable, close, not hidden, displayed. That went into a box too. Carefully, like evidence. There were 3 larger items left. A vintage vanity from her aunt, a bookshelf, and the ergonomic office chair he had bought for her remote job. $860. She promised to pay him back monthly. She never paid a cent. He added that detail to the mental ledger, not emotionally, just factually. The knocking came back the next afternoon. Slower this time, more controlled. He looked through the peephole. Ashley, alone, angry. He opened the door, chain still locked. She immediately pushed against it. Daniel opened the door. "My key doesn't work." "I know," he said. "I changed the locks." Her face shifted from anger to disbelief. "You what? You can't do that. This is my home. I have rights." Daniel stayed calm. "No, Ashley. It's my apartment. You're not on the lease. You lived here because I allowed it." Her jaw tightened. "I lived here for 2 years. You can't just throw me out." Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then said something that ended the argument before it even started. "I already did." Silence. Real silence. Then her tone changed. Softer now. Careful. "Daniel, please, can we just talk?" 3 days earlier, he might have opened that door. Now he just looked at her like someone reviewing a contract that had already expired. Then she made a mistake. "Tyler thinks you're overreacting too." Daniel almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it told him everything. Tyler wasn't defending her. Tyler was creating distance. That meant something had changed. Daniel leaned slightly closer to the door and asked one quiet question. "Does Tyler know you told me you were staying with friends that Tuesday?" Her face froze. Complete system failure. And in that exact second, Daniel understood something important. There was more lying happening than either of them realized. and somebody was about to lose control of the story. Because breakups aren't really about heartbreak. They're about who controls the truth after. And Ashley was starting to realize she might not be the one controlling it anymore. Daniel didn't argue with her. He didn't try to convince her. He didn't even try to win. He simply ended it. "We're done," he said. Ashley stared at him like she hadn't heard correctly. "You don't get to break up with me over a joke." Daniel didn't react. "That wasn't a joke," he said. "That was information." Her expression hardened. "I'm getting my stuff." "I already packed your personal things," he said. That caught her off guard. "You what?" "They're in boxes by the door." Her face went from anger to disbelief. "You packed my things?" "I packed what belongs to you. Open this door." "No." That word landed harder than anything else. "You can schedule a time to pick up your boxes. You'll have about 30 minutes. You take what's in the entryway. That's it." Her face turned red. "What about my furniture? My vanity? My office chair?" Daniel nodded slightly. "The vanity is yours. It was a gift. The bookshelf is yours." Then he paused. "The chair is different." She already knew she wasn't going to like the answer. "What do you mean different?" "I paid for it," he said calmly. $860. "You agreed to reimburse me. You never did." Her jaw literally dropped. "That's extortion." "No," he said. "That's accounting. You're stealing my property. It became your property when you paid for it. I need that chair for work." "Then you probably should have paid for it." She stared at him like she didn't recognize him anymore, or maybe like she was realizing she never had. "I'll call the police," she said. "I'll tell them you're stealing from me." Daniel stepped slightly aside from the door. "Please do," he said calmly. "I'd love to show them the lease and the credit card statement. And you can explain how your backup fiancé joke got you locked out." He waited. She stared at him. Angry tears started forming, not sad tears, furious ones. "You're going to regret this," she said quietly. Daniel didn't answer. She turned and walked away while dialing her phone. He watched her leave, closed the door, locked it, and for the first time in months, he felt calm. Not happy, not victorious, just lighter. Like a constant background pressure had finally disappeared. 14 boxes sat stacked near the entry wall. 4 years of someone's life reduced to cardboard. He caught himself thinking something strange. This should feel like a disaster. Instead, it felt like clarity. 2 days later, the police showed up. He saw them through the peephole and already knew why they were there. Ashley had followed through on the threat. Outside on the curb stood Ashley and Tyler. Ashley was looking emotional. Tyler was standing slightly behind her like someone trying to look supportive without being too involved. Daniel opened the door. The older officer looked tired before he even spoke. "Sir, we received a complaint regarding a domestic situation." Daniel nodded politely. "There isn't one," he said. "My ex-fiancée is outside. We separated. She's been asked to collect her belongings." Ashley immediately jumped in. "He locked me out. He took my property. He's keeping my work chair." The older officer exhaled slowly. The younger one asked, "Sir, if she lives here, you can't just lock her out." Daniel nodded. "I understand completely," he said. "That's why I have documentation." He handed over a printed lease, only his name. He explained calmly, "All of her mail goes to her parents' address. She never established legal residency here." The officers read the document, then looked at Ashley, then back at Daniel. "Okay," the older officer said, "but she does have belongings here." "Yes," Daniel said. 14 boxes right inside the entry. I've offered multiple pickup times. She refused because she wants full access to the apartment." "He's lying," Ashley said. "He's keeping my work chair." The younger officer looked at Daniel. "What about the chair?" Daniel was ready. "I purchased it." He handed over a printed credit card statement, charge highlighted. "She agreed to reimburse me. She hasn't paid anything. As far as I'm concerned, it remains mine until she does." Silence. The officers exchanged a look. Finally, the older one spoke into his radio. "Civil property dispute." Then he looked back at Daniel. "We can't force you to give her the chair. That would be small claims territory. But we can supervise while she retrieves uncontested property." Daniel nodded immediately. Absolutely. The next 20 minutes felt longer than the entire relationship. The officers stood in the doorway. Daniel stayed inside. Ashley and Tyler carried boxes out one by one. Trip after trip. 14 boxes. The bookshelf in pieces. The vanity took 2 trips. Ashley cried the entire time. Loud, uncontrolled. Tyler didn't speak much, just carried things. But he kept looking at Daniel like he wanted a reason to be angry. Eventually he muttered, "You're really doing this over pride?" Daniel didn't even blink. "You're welcome to Venmo me the $860, he said. "You can take the chair yourself." One of the officers actually let out a short laugh. Tyler's face turned bright red. He grabbed the last box. "This isn't over." Daniel gave a small nod. "Have a good night." Ashley stopped before leaving. "You're a thief," she said quietly. Daniel didn't answer. He just closed the door, locked it. The officers nodded respectfully and left. Daniel thought that was the end of it. He was wrong, because Ashley wasn't trying to win emotionally anymore. She started trying to win socially. 3 days later, his landlord called. "Hey, Daniel. Strange question." Daniel already felt his stomach tighten. "What's going on?" "I've gotten several complaints about your unit." Daniel felt a cold weight drop in his chest. "What kind of complaints?" "Well," the landlord hesitated. "Noise complaints. Arguments. Someone reported chemical smells." Daniel felt his pulse slow. "And the last one?" The landlord hesitated again. "Someone reported possible drug activity." Silence. Daniel didn't say anything. Then the landlord added, "Multiple anonymous calls." And that was when Daniel understood something important. Ashley wasn't trying to get her stuff anymore. She was trying to damage his stability. Because if she couldn't control the relationship, she was going to try to control the narrative. And for the first time since the breakup, Daniel realized this wasn't over. Not even close. Because what she didn't know yet was that Daniel worked in risk management, and he had just started documenting everything. And the biggest mistake Ashley was about to make was assuming she was the only one playing strategy. Daniel had dealt with difficult situations before. Deadlines, clients, financial pressure, unexpected problems. But fear felt different when it involved your home. Because suddenly it wasn't just about emotions anymore. It was about survival. His landlord didn't sound angry when he called. That almost made it worse. "Daniel, listen," Mark said carefully. "You've been one of my best tenants for years. I know you. I don't think you're the kind of person these complaints describe." Daniel stayed quiet. "But the corporate doesn't care about what I think," Mark continued. "And the word drug activity, that's the kind of word that triggers automatic procedures." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. "What kind of procedures?" "A formal inspection," Mark said, "next week. And if we get another complaint, they may force an eviction review under the community safety clause." That sentence hit harder than anything Ashley had said, because this wasn't drama anymore. This was leverage. Daniel spoke slowly. "It's my ex. I'm almost certain she's retaliating." Mark sighed. "I believe you, I really do. But I still have to follow procedure." Then he added something that sounded almost like a warning. "Whatever is happening, you need to make it stop." After the call ended, Daniel just sat there. For the first time since the breakup, he actually felt afraid. Not of her, of what she was willing to do. This wasn't about the chair anymore. This wasn't about pride. This was escalation. If she couldn't control him emotionally, she was trying to destabilize his life instead. Daniel didn't panic. He did what he always did when risk appeared. He went into problem-solving mode. The next morning, he scheduled a consultation with a local attorney. $400 for an hour. Worth it. He explained everything. The engagement party, the police visit, the false complaints, the landlord pressure. The lawyer didn't look surprised. She just nodded slowly. "This is textbook retaliation behavior," she said. "Vindictive escalation after loss of control." Daniel didn't interrupt. "So what do I do?" Her answer was immediate. Documentation. Then, boundaries. Then, legal pressure. She recommended a formal cease and desist letter. Not emotional, not dramatic. Professional. Cold. It would formally document the harassment, the false complaints, the interference with housing stability, And it would make something very clear. Further contact could become grounds for civil action, harassment, defamation, intentional emotional distress. Daniel agreed. The letters were sent certified. One to Ashley, one to Tyler, one to Brittany. Paper creates reality, and paper creates consequences. The lawyer also gave him another instruction. Send a written statement to your landlord in their corporate office. Explain the breakup. Explain the retaliation. Attach the legal notice. Create a paper trail. Daniel did exactly that. No emotion, just facts. Breakup date, police involvement, property exchange, harassment timeline, legal response. That email might have saved his housing because it changed the story from suspicious tenant to documented harassment victim. The next week was tense. The inspection came. Daniel cleaned everything, organized everything, prepared like he was expecting an audit. When the inspection finished, the result was simple. No violations, no concerns, no evidence of anything. Mark actually looked embarrassed. "Sorry you had to go through this," he said. Daniel just nodded, because something inside him had already changed. He wasn't angry anymore. Anger requires emotional investment. This felt different, colder, more distant, like watching a problem instead of feeling it. The letters worked faster than he expected. The anonymous complaints stopped immediately. No more calls, no more rumors, no more pressure. It was amazing what happened when the consequences became real. People who enjoy drama rarely enjoy liability. About a week later, Daniel received a text from an unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then he opened it. "Hey, it's Tyler." Daniel just stared at the message. Another one came 10 minutes later. "I'm out. This whole thing got insane." Daniel still didn't respond. Then a third message arrived. "She wanted me to call your landlord again. She wanted me to say I saw weapons in your apartment." That one made Daniel sit up straighter. Another message followed. "I'm not getting arrested for her. I told her I'm done. Sorry for my part in this." Daniel didn't reply. He didn't need to, because that message confirmed something important. Tyler had been comfortable being the backup, comfortable being an ego boost, comfortable being the secret option. But the moment real consequences appeared, he disappeared. The backup plan collapsed the second it involved actual risk. Daniel deleted the conversation, not out of anger, out of closure. Life went quiet after that, for almost a month. No drama, no messages, no incidents. Daniel started sleeping better, started thinking about normal things again. Then one evening his phone rang, unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Hello?" A calm, older voice responded. "Daniel, this is Rebecca." Ashley's mother. Daniel felt his chest tighten slightly. "I didn't expect to hear from you," he said carefully. "I'm not calling to argue," she said. "I just want to understand what happened." Daniel didn't answer immediately, because sometimes silence says more than explanation. And something told him. This conversation wasn't going to be simple, because some people fight directly, others fight through reputation, and parents often fight through guilt. And Daniel had a feeling. This was about to become the final test. Daniel didn't expect the final confrontation to come through her mother, but looking back later, it made perfect sense. Because when direct pressure stopped working, some people tried something else. Guilt. The call came on a quiet evening almost 6 weeks after everything had exploded. For the first time in a long while, life had started to feel normal again. No messages, no complaints, no drama. Just silence. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Something told him he probably should. "Hello?" A calm, older voice answered. "Daniel, this is Rebecca, Ashley's mother." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "I wasn't expecting your call." "I'm not calling to argue," she said quickly. "I just wanted to talk." Daniel said nothing. He had learned something important over the last 2 months. Silence makes people reveal their real reason for calling. "She's not doing well," Rebecca finally said. "She had to move back home." Daniel didn't respond. Tyler, well, he wasn't who she thought he was. Still silence. "She's trying to rebuild her freelance work again, but..." She hesitated. "It's her back." Daniel almost smiled slightly. Here it comes, he thought. "She's in a lot of pain. She can't sit for long periods. She said that the ergonomic chair you have was the only one that ever helped her. There it was. After the false complaints, after the police call, after the attempts to destabilize his housing, after everything. The final move was a sympathy play over a chair. Daniel almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. "I'm sorry to hear she's in pain," he said calmly. A pause. "She told me you were keeping the chair just to punish her." Daniel answered without emotion. "I'm keeping it because I paid for it." He spoke slowly. $860. She agreed to reimburse me. She never paid anything. I'm not a charity. And I'm definitely not giving an expensive gift to someone who tried to get me evicted. There was a long exhale on the other end. Frustration now, not sympathy. "How much?" Rebecca finally asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. $860. "That's ridiculous," she said. "It's used." "That's what I paid," Daniel said. "That's what she agreed to pay. Honestly, I'm already being generous. I could charge storage." Silence. Long silence. He could hear her breathing. Then finally, "Can I send you the money?" Daniel blinked. "Yes, you can." "And you'll give her the chair?" Daniel answered immediately. "You send the money. I'll put the chair outside. You can send whoever you want to pick it up. I don't want to see her again." "Fine," she said, and hung up. Less than a minute later, his phone buzzed. Payment received, $860. Note, for the chair. Daniel looked at the notification for a few seconds, then stood up, rolled the chair to the front porch, sat it neatly by the wall, texted one short message. "It's outside." Then he waited. About an hour later, a car he didn't recognize pulled up. Ashley stepped out from the passenger side. For a second, Daniel thought she might look toward the apartment. She didn't. She grabbed the chair quickly, almost like someone stealing something, loaded it into the back seat, and the car drove away. She never looked back. And that told him everything. That was the real ending, not the breakup, not the argument, not the legal letters. That moment. Because that was when he understood something simple. Some people don't want closure. They just want control. And when they lose it, they disappear. Life became quiet after that. Actually quiet. Not tense quiet. Real quiet. Through a mutual friend, one of the few people who later apologized, Daniel learned something else. Ashley and Brittany weren't speaking anymore. Apparently, Ashley blamed Brittany for everything, said the joke ruined her life. Daniel shook his head when he heard that. Some people never see themselves clearly. Financially, the whole situation had cost him. New locks, legal consultation, time, stress, trust. But he also gained something. Perspective. He stopped second-guessing himself, stopped replaying conversations, stopped wondering if he overreacted. Because clarity changes how you see the past. The apartment felt different now, cleaner, not physically, mentally. He wasn't dating, wasn't trying to. He was just enjoying something he hadn't realized he had been missing. Peace. He didn't see himself as strong, or impressive, or even particularly brave. Just someone who finally learned something late. Boundaries aren't about being tough. They're about deciding what you're no longer willing to tolerate. The ring box was long gone. He had thrown it away weeks earlier. But the ring itself, that felt different. One afternoon, he dropped it into one of those donation boxes that collected old jewelry for charity. He didn't think about it much, just dropped it in and walked away. Some symbols don't deserve storage. They deserve release. And later that night, sitting alone in his quiet apartment, Daniel realized something that surprised even him. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't hurt anymore. He wasn't even relieved. He was just done. And sometimes that's the real ending. Not revenge, not victory. Just the quiet moment when you realize the chaos is finally behind you, and you can hear about your own life again.